It has been a little over 3 months since my video on the Creality Sonic Pad, a standalone touchscreen interface running Klipper along with Klipper Screen. In that video, we covered setup and ran through some of the Sonic Pad's strengths, like its beginner-friendly interface for getting Klipper flashed to a Creality printer, and some of its shortcomings. Well, since that video, there have been 2 pretty big updates and lots of requests for me to revisit this. I got the Ender 5 S1 in some weeks ago and ended up updating the pad's firmware so that I can use the built-in Klipper config for this printer. So in today's video, we will be diving once again into the Sonic Pad to go through its changes since my first video, as well as my updated thoughts on the unit. There are some definite positives as well as a few head scratchers. So with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get right into today's video. At the time of recording, the latest firmware for the Sonic Pad is version 1.0.6.35.154, which is a mouthful, and the last major update was on December 2nd. For updating, the pad will detect and prompt you to download the update if it's connected to your network. You can additionally go over to Creality's website and just download the firmware file onto a flash drive and update it that way. Let's first run through the improvements that have been made since the last video. When the Sonic Pad first came out, it only shipped with configs for the Ender 3 S1, the S1 Pro, and the Ender 3 V2. This left out a huge percentage of Creality printers, and I'd hoped they'd be quick to update to include their other machines. Well, they have since added 18 additional Creality printers, which is awesome to see. This covers a huge portion of their catalog. Although the Sonic Pad is clearly geared towards Creality users, it is capable of being used with any Klipper compatible controller. At launch, the process for creating a firmware file for a non-Creality printer was incredibly tedious. This has been overhauled, and you are now able to generate a Klipper image for other controllers directly from the pad. This should make it much easier to use this device with non-Creality printers. Originally, the Sonic Pad shipped with Fluid as the web interface, and although Fluid is an awesome web interface, I have typically used Mainsail more often, and I just have more familiarity using that interface. With the update, the Sonic Pad is now running both Fluid and Mainsail. To access Fluid, just type the pad's IP address into your browser, and for Mainsail, add :8819. This is a nice addition, and I really like having the option of using either of those 2 web interfaces. One big thing I was hoping for with the Sonic Pad was the ability to run it with multiple 3D printers at the same time. At $160 for the unit, that could get really expensive if you have multiple 3D printers that you're wanting to kit out with these. Creality had mentioned at launch that they were working on making the Sonic Pad compatible with multiple printers, but at the time of recording that last video, it was not available yet. Well, they did end up following through with this, and at the time of recording this, you can now use the Sonic Pad with up to 4 3D printers at the same time. There are some limitations, like only being able to use 1 webcam for the 4 printers, but this is a pretty massive upgrade and definitely makes the unit a better value. Pressure advance, rotation distance, and max temp values for both the hot end and the bed can now be set directly from the pad. In my initial video, I mentioned that there was an issue with the way the Sonic Pad was running input shaping. The pad ran input shaping for both the X and Y axis back to back without any pause to let you move the accelerometer. Although that setup did work for Core XY printers or printers like the Ender 5 S1, this meant that the input shaping built in would not work for any of the i3 style printers because you weren't able to get a reading from the bed. This has since been updated, and it now runs the X-axis input shaping, pauses, lets you move the accelerometer, and then you can run it for the Y-axis. Now for the head scratcher. Prior to making this video, I tore apart this room as well as the garage looking for the included accelerometer, but I'm convinced that it developed legs and ran off. I looked online for a replacement, and the only option I found was a third party on AliExpress that will take weeks to get here, and there is no guarantee that it will actually work. Creality also released the SSH info, so I figured I would just SSH into the device and configure it to work with my RP2040 ADXL. Well, this is when I discovered that yes, they did release the username and the password, but the device is so locked down that even after you SSH into it, you can't really do anything at all with it. I couldn't install Kaya, get into the Klipper directory, list serial IDs, or update anything. The SSH info is pretty much worthless with the Sonic Pad in its current state. This led me down a bit of a rabbit hole and over to the Sonic Pad's Facebook group. Here I did discover that some users have figured out how to get root access and are working on cracking the device open. This should allow you to update things like the web interface, install add-ons like Obico, and just give you further control of the Sonic Pad. As much as I am a fan of unlocking things, and that's really how this channel got its start, it isn't something that the community should have to do. Creality has made a lot of great improvements on the Sonic Pad since its launch, but the SSH aspect of it and giving user permissions needs some serious work. I would love to see them make it easier or possible for advanced users to easily gain root access so they can do things like install Kaya and just have more advanced control for manual updating. If they have concerns with users potentially messing up the pad by playing around with things they're not supposed to, they can have the stock image somewhere available with instructions on how to just flash things back to its stock state. I also really hope to see Creality add their accelerometer for the Sonic Pad to their web shop and Amazon, along with allowing for USB accelerometer support. In the meantime, I will resort to the manual printing method of tuning input shaping. Much of my previous thoughts on the Creality Sonic Pad from the previous video still stand. With its ability to now work with up to 4 3D printers at the same time, it's an even better value, and I do think that this is the easiest route I've seen out there to get Klipper up and running on Creality printers. However, if you are a seasoned Klipper user and are wanting further control, I would hold off and wait to see what develops both externally and within Creality when it comes to user permissions. And that has been the 3-month update of the Creality Sonic Pad. I'm very happy to see that they've been working on improvements, and the majority of the suggestions I made in that first video have since been implemented. If there are any additional features that you would like to see added that would make this more attractive, let me know in the comments down below. On that note, don't forget to like and subscribe for more great videos. We make a video every single week, so there's always fresh content coming your way. And if you do want to support the channel furthermore, I'll have links down below in the description over to our Patreon where there are some really awesome rewards. Huge thank you to all of our existing Patreon supporters. I appreciate each and every one of you for allowing me to come back every single week and spend more time doing what I love, which is making content for you all to enjoy. On that note, this has been Daniel from ModBot, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Peace, guys!